First off, let's talk about the design of this device. It's not the most ergonomic design out there, but it is definitely one of the best looking devices in this price bracket. It features a diamond cut design that has become synonymous with the company's offerings. We have the crystal red color variant with us, and honestly, this is my favorite. That said, you can also buy it in either blue or purple color options. Now you get the volume rockers on the left side while there's the power button on the right side. The device is a little bulky, though this is primarily due to the 5000 mAh battery it houses inside. This brings the weight of the device to about 198 grams. Add to that the massive curves on the sides and the device feels like a massive chunk of mass that you're holding in your hand. There's also a physical fingerprint scanner at the back, which personally I'm a fan of. While I do wish there was a gesture to swipe down on it to reveal the notification tray, it's not that much of a deal. The fingerprint unlock works fast enough without any complaints. And before you ask, there's Face Unlock 2, which works just as fast. It's a good looking device with some really premium design and build quality, which is nearly perfect had it not been for its weight. Now if you recall, the Realme 5 was launched a couple of months ago with a beautiful 6.5-inch display that was only let down by its resolution. We are here with the Realme 5S and unfortunately the story hasn't changed. You still get a 6.5-inch LCD IPS display with a 720 x 1600 pixel resolution. While it isn't bad, having a low resolution display on a panel this big clearly affects the experience. It's not a total deal breaker though, because for the most part I couldn't even notice the pixelation or graininess. That said, once you move on to watching videos, there is an evident lack of clarity. Speaking of which, the device here does not have a widewide L1 certification, so content consumption on this device is a letdown. Now, if you're someone who can let go of that, the overall panel is still pretty good. Colors really pop on this, and it is definitely one of the brightest panels I've used in this price segment. The display also houses a water drop notch at the top that contains the selfie camera inside. While the resolution hasn't changed, the notch is ever so slightly smaller this time around. This helps the Realme 5S boast of an 89% screen to body ratio, which is nice to see. Though I still wish it was a full HD panel and it feels like a missed opportunity from Realme. One of the biggest complaints that I have with any device that's not OnePlus is the custom skin on that. While I am a big fan of Oxygen OS, I'll try to be as plain and as blunt about ColorOS that the Realme 5S actually packs in. And having used it for a couple of days, you get to realize that it's not that different from other custom skins out there. It's just a different skin and acquired taste. It's not the best skin for sure, but it isn't the worst either. Things like search from everywhere, smart sidebar, game space are features that really come in handy. And let's not forget dark mode, by far my favorite addition to the lot. That said, obviously it's not all merry. For starters, I can't even delete a folder here. And the notification management isn't as smooth as one would like. I mean, this is basic stuff right here, and I don't really understand that why in the quest of making a good custom skin, you would let go of the basics. Now, I would have usually complained about launching a device at this point of the year with Android 9 Pie, but then again, ColorOS 7 is right around the corner, so let's see what the update schedule for the Realme 5S actually happens to be. For what it's worth, ColorOS isn't bad. It takes some time getting used to, but once you do, it's like any other custom skin out there. Also, unlike MIUI, there are no ads here. That said, it is worth mentioning that it comes with a ton of bloatware. Most of it is uninstallable, but I still wish they offered a cleaner option. This has to be the highlighted upgrade on the Realme 5S over its predecessor. The Realme 5, though it came with a quad camera setup, featured a 12MP primary sensor. Now, in order to compete with Xiaomi, the Realme 5S also features a 48MP Samsung GM1 sensor as its primary lens. The rest of the lenses are the same, an 8MP ultra-wide sensor, a 2MP macro lens, and another 2MP depth sensor. Now that we have the spec sheet out, let's take a look at how this setup actually performs. In normal daylight photographs, the Realme 5S actually manages to take some really good photographs. The colors are mostly on point, and while there is a hint of saturation, it isn't a big deal. The images appear crisp, and the 48MP sensor with its pixel binning technology definitely shows its power. Apart from offering a bigger point of view, the ultra-wide sensor actually creates some good results too, and the end results do exhibit details as well. For portrait images, the 2MP depth sensor does come in handy, as the edge detection here is pretty much on point. The subject gets highlighted a bit awkwardly though, and the image feels slightly smooth, something that I don't prefer for my camera. Lastly, the macro lens is pretty good too, and if you intend to get creative with your photography skills, the Realme 5S wouldn't let you down. Now when you dim the lights, the performance of the camera definitely takes a toll. Despite featuring a dedicated night mode, there's a lot of noise and considerable lack of detail in the shots captured. You can easily spot the grains in these shots, and while the subject is illuminated decently, you still can't call it a good picture. Lastly, moving on to selfies, the 5S is no different than most Realme devices that we've seen. The images look good, though even after turning the beauty mode off, the camera tends to soften the face a bit, giving it an unrealistic look that I'm not a fan of. Now some people may like it since the images turn out to be social media ready. That said, I personally like my images to be crisp, so I guess everyone has their own taste. The Realme 5S isn't a flagship device by any means. I mean, with a price tag of Rs 10,000, it barely enters the mid-range segment as well. That's it, the speakers on this thing really outshine its price tag. They're actually pretty good. Yes, it's a mono setup, but it can get loud. The levels seem to be balanced, and the limited video consumption that you'd be doing on this display should be more than aided by the audio setup on board here. That said, it still suffers from the same issues that every other speaker in that position does, which is that it is easily muffled while playing a game due to the position of your hands. In terms of call quality, there is not a lot to be stated here. All phones that I've used in recent times offer good connectivity, and if there's ever any issue, it's mostly due to the service provider. The earpiece here is also quite big, and there were no issues in terms of the call audio or quality on the Realme 5S. There's also a triple card slot here, so apart from having two SIM cards here, you can also put in a microSD card slot for expandable storage. Okay, so coming to the performance segment, the Realme 5S comes with a Snapdragon 665 SoC coupled with 4GB of RAM. Day-to-day usage of the device proved to be pretty good, and reducing the animations to a 0.5x factor really makes everything look super smooth. I did not face any sort of lags anywhere, and while ColorOS is known for its aggressive RAM management, the 4GB of RAM seemed to be pretty decent in my use case. On that note, I would also like to point out that 4GB RAM is the standard across all variants, which is two variants, of the Realme 5S, which is a good thing to see. I fired up a couple of games on this, including fan favorites Call of Duty and PUBG Mobile, and in both the cases, the results were acceptable. The games ran on medium settings by default, and while the device does tend to get a bit warm after about 15 minutes of gameplay, it's pretty much normal behavior and nothing major. Put a 720p display with a Snapdragon 665 SoC and a beefy 5000 mAh battery, and you have a device that can go to extreme lengths. Like seriously. In day-to-day usage, the device will actually last from a day to another day and even more. Now, I was averaging about 10 hours of screen on time on the Realme 5S, which even though is what I expected, is pretty good. The only letdown here is on the other side of the coin, which is the charging time. The device comes with a standard 10-watt charger, and it takes almost 2.5 hours to fully charge the device. That said, once you do, you wouldn't be required to charge it again for a very long time. Now, I was gonna end this segment on that note, except that there's one little micro thing that I have to address, which is the micro USB. Obviously, you must have guessed it right now. In a time where even budget smartphones are making the switch to USB-C, it is weird to see Realme roll out a refreshed version of their smartphone and still not equip it with a Type-C port. Now, I'm not kidding, I actually had to carry the Realme 5S's charger every day to work just because there are no micro USB cables hanging around in an office. Like seriously, I mean, it's not a big deal, but you really have to get ahead of the competition as well, right? Now speaking about the competition, the Realme 5S goes head to head with the Redmi Note 8. And although the Realme 5S is a pretty good device, I would still pick the Redmi Note 8 over it. You see, the Note 8 offers a better full HD display, comes with the same hardware underneath, packs in a USB Type-C port that supports 18-watt fast charging, and honestly just feels better in the hand. At this point, the Realme 5S seems to be the obvious choice only for the person who wants a device that lasts quite long. And it's not like the Note 8 can't do that. In fact, I was testing both the devices side by side, and the Note 8 also gave me a screen on time of about 7 hours despite its considerably smaller 4000 mAh battery. As for the camera, you can see a side-by-side comparison of both the devices on your screen. I'll let you be the judge for it. You see, on the whole, the Realme 5S is a good device, but it still fails to beat the benchmark set by the Redmi Note 8. For exactly the same price, the Redmi Note 8 manages to be the better choice and